I was already standing in the parking lot when she said it. Rain wasn't falling. It was floating, like someone above us was bored and decided to let gravity take a break. If anyone asks, she said, adjusting her lip gloss in the side mirror, we're not together. Not we're taking a break. Not let's talk after the event. Just that. Cold. Dismissive. Pre-rehearsed. I nodded like I agreed. But something inside me died so loudly I thought the security guard across the lot might hear it. She didn't wait for my response. She grabbed her clutch and slammed the car door with the same force she used when we used to argue about dishes or tone. Only this time, there was nothing left to argue about. I stayed in the car for 17 minutes. I counted. I watched the red digital clock on the dashboard and kept resetting the defroster even though the windows weren't fogged. I didn't know what I was waiting for. Maybe a text saying, "Come in, I'm sorry." It never came. Eventually, I walked inside. I wasn't dressed for the event anymore. I'd taken off my blazer in a fit of something ugly. I looked like a caterer who'd lost his tray. Then I saw her. Not across the room, not from a distance. I saw her 5 feet away, smiling, hand on a man's chest, laughing at something he'd whispered. And when one of her co-workers walked by and said, "Oh, I didn't know you brought someone," she didn't hesitate. "This is Reeve," she said, turning toward him. "My boyfriend." That's when I left. I didn't make a scene. I didn't cry. I just walked out through the service entrance and sat on the back steps behind the hotel kitchen, next to a stack of broken champagne flutes in a bucket. And that's where I stayed for an hour, watching steam rise from a vent, listening to the muffled music through the walls, trying to remember when exactly I became the +0 in her life. I don't remember standing up. One moment I was tracing cracks in the concrete with the toe of my shoe. The next I was walking across the parking lot like I had somewhere to be, like I wasn't bleeding invisibly from every joint. I reached the car, opened the door, and just sat behind the wheel with my hands frozen at 10 and 2. I didn't even start the engine. I stared at my own reflection in the dark glass of the building and wondered how long it would take for a man to vanish without technically dying. When I got home, her closet door was open. That detail shouldn't have bothered me, but it did. It felt like a taunt, like she had left it open on purpose to show me that she had options. I noticed a garment bag tossed carelessly on the bed. The dress she wore to the party now half hung, half slumped, like it too had given up. The strange thing was, she hadn't come home yet. It was well past midnight. I was still in my rumpled shirt from earlier, pacing the hallway barefoot. I didn't want to text her. I didn't want to care. But my body moved on its own, thumb hovering over her contact like some pathetic ritual. That's when the Uber app on her iPad chimed with a notification. Trip complete, $42. 73 from Westbridge Hotel to Sunnyside Apartments. Not our address. I stared at the screen like it would explain itself. It didn't. The timestamp was 12:39 a.m. She had left the party and gone to someone else's apartment. That was the first time I said his name out loud. Reeve. I don't know what I expected to feel. Rage? Jealousy? Sadness? What I felt was hollow, like someone had scooped my insides out with a soup ladle and left only the noise of my own breathing. I walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and stared at the leftover lasagna I'd made the night before. It had her favorite mushrooms. She said I always put too many. I always said not enough. I threw it in the trash without even unwrapping the foil. Then I opened her laptop. I know. I shouldn't have. I'd always respected her privacy. I'd never looked through her phone, never guessed her passwords. But that night, something broke. The rules we built our marriage on didn't apply anymore. And that's when I saw it. Not just one message. Not just one lie. A folder in her email titled Client Projects. Password protected, but her passwords weren't hard to guess. She used the same one for almost everything. The name of her childhood cat, misspelled. Inside were emails. Dozens of them. To Reeve. From Reeve. They'd been talking for 7 months. Coordinating weekends. Sending pictures. Making jokes about me. My quirks, my bad haircut last fall, even my obsession with labeling leftovers. They called me the museum piece. But it wasn't the messages that made me physically step back from the screen. It was the Google Calendar invite, labeled Goodbye Plan. And the attached note said, once it's done, no contact for 90 days. Let the dust settle. The event was scheduled for this Sunday. Today was Friday. The word, goodbye, blinked at me from the screen like it was mocking me. Not a conversation. Not a confrontation. Just a clean, digital square on a shared calendar. An appointment for betrayal. A neat little bow tied around the corpse of our marriage. No screaming. No crying. No broken dishes or slammed doors. Just a click, a plan, and a 90-day silence like I was a co-worker being off-boarded from her life. I stared at that calendar invite for a long time. The more I looked at it, the more absurd it felt. Like I was reading a movie script about someone else's life. Some spineless character who didn't see it coming, and now was quietly sitting in his dimly lit kitchen while the woman he loved coordinated her exit, like she was booking a spa weekend. I should have felt angry. I should have punched a wall or deleted her emails or set her toothbrush on fire. But I didn't. I just closed the laptop and went to the bathroom, not to cry, but to look in the mirror and try to recognize the man staring back. My eyes looked like they belonged to someone else. My skin was pale, my stubble uneven, my expression hollowed out from the inside. I looked like a man who'd stopped sleeping before he even realized he was staying awake. At some point, I lay down on the couch and pulled the throw blanket over my chest like that would stop the shaking. I didn't sleep. I just hovered, in a fog of unfinished thoughts and memories that felt suddenly poisoned. The road trip to Arizona. Her weird little laugh when she sneezes. The way she used to tuck her feet under me while we watched true crime. All of it felt like a prank now. Like I'd been tricked into loving a version of her that never really existed. By the time I heard the front door unlock, it was almost 4 a.m. She walked in barefoot, heels in one hand, a half-drunk smile still lingering on her lips like it hadn't gotten the memo that the night was over. I pretended to be asleep. I listened to her set her purse down, open the fridge, and take a swig of juice straight from the carton. She stood in the kitchen for a while. I could hear her breathing, just standing there in the dark, like she was waiting for the air to tell her what to do next. Eventually, she walked past me and into the bedroom. She didn't look in my direction. She didn't say a word. Just the sound of her door clicking shut behind her, as soft and final as a coffin lid. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Made toast. Scrolled through her phone. Asked me if I wanted to go to the farmer's market. I said I had a migraine. She nodded, already bored with pretending. She left at noon, and I began to prepare. Not for a fight. Not even for revenge. I began to prepare for silence. If she wanted to ghost me from our life, then I'd become a ghost too, but not the kind that fades. The kind that lingers. Watches. Waits. And maybe, just maybe, the kind that takes something with him when he leaves. She must have assumed I would spiral. That I'd break down, beg, maybe cry into one of her blouses, or leave a 1,000-word note she could scoff at while sipping wine with Reeve. That I'd turn into a cautionary tale she'd retell later. He found out, couldn't handle it, went full sad boy mode. But I didn't spiral. I observed. She forgot that before I ever worked in software QA, I spent 5 years in forensic logistics, reverse engineering internal fraud, and tracking financial discrepancies across hundreds of vendor accounts. My job was literally to notice what didn't belong. I trained myself to spot patterns before anyone else could. And now, she was a walking anomaly. Every word she said was 2 degrees off. Every smile had a delay. Every morning routine, altered, subtly, like someone trying to walk in someone else's shoes and failing. Saturday night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I accessed the backup drive. It was still buried in my old desk drawer, behind expired gift cards and a dried-up fountain pen she bought me for our anniversary back, when she still left lipstick on my cheek without wiping it off. I powered it up and dug through everything. Not looking for proof, I had enough of that. I was looking for memory, context, maybe even a weakness. That's when I found the photos. Not of her, of him, and not recent. Reeve. In a photo dated 6 years ago. A wedding reception, not ours, someone else's. A blurry shot from behind the bar, me holding a drink, her holding my hand. And in the far corner, barely noticeable, Reeve leaning against the railing, staring at her with that same stupid smirk. He wasn't new. He was recycled. Suddenly, it all made sense. Her hesitation when I first brought up his name. The way she over-explained how they accidentally ended up working late. The way she never once said he was married or had a girlfriend. Only ever, he's harmless. He had been orbiting her life longer than I'd realized. And I'd been played from the start. But it wasn't just her lie that cracked something inside me. It was that she used me to hide from him back then. And now she was using him to hide from me. There was no new love. Just a cycle. A rotation of safety nets. and I was her quietest one. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I uploaded the wedding photo to a throwaway email account and sent it to her inbox with no subject line and no body text. 5 minutes later, I heard her phone buzz across the room. She was brushing her teeth. She came back into the living room with her face still half covered in foam, eyes locked on the screen. She didn't say anything. She didn't ask me if I sent it. But she turned her phone face down, and her hands were shaking. It was the first time I'd seen her afraid. Not of me. Of being found out by someone who wasn't supposed to be watching anymore. Good. Let her sweat. Because I wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. Not until I found out what else she buried under our quiet little life. And I had a feeling Sunday, the day of her goodbye plan, would be the day everything finally collapsed. Not because I'd force it to, but because she would. And I would be right there, watching. Sunday morning came dressed like any other. Cold toast, gray light through the blinds, the radiator clicking like it had a secret. But something in the air was off. It didn't smell like endings. It smelled like exposure, like something was about to be dragged into daylight that had lived too long in the dark. She woke up before me, or maybe she hadn't slept at all. I heard the shower running at 6:17 a.m. I stayed in bed with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling, counting the number of water droplets until she shut it off. 73. I don't know why I counted. Maybe I just needed something to be sure of. By 7 o'clock, she was in the kitchen, pouring coffee into a thermos she never used, double-checking her makeup in the microwave door's reflection. She looked like someone going to a job interview she already planned to quit. Her eyes were puffy, but her lipstick was flawless. She didn't say goodbye, just left the apartment quietly, the door clicking shut like she was trying not to wake a sleeping animal. The calendar said this was the day. Goodbye plan. She thought she'd walk away like a professional. Clean break. Vanish. Reset. I made no move to follow. Instead, I pulled out a second phone. A cheap prepaid one. I hadn't needed to use it in over a year, but I kept it just in case. A long time ago, I gave the number to someone she hoped I'd never speak to again. That someone. Her sister. Hazel. They hadn't spoken in 3 years. Not since their father's funeral. Sorrel burned that bridge over something stupid. Hazel had been engaged to a man Sorrel claimed was emotionally manipulative. I stayed out of it then. But now, I wasn't staying out of anything. I texted Hazel just one sentence. You were right. If you want closure, meet me today at 11 a.m. Cafe Granary. She replied in less than a minute. I'll be there. I didn't expect kindness. I expected damage. I was ready for it. I met her at the cafe near the library, where Sorrel used to study in grad school. Hazel showed up in a dark coat, sunglasses, no makeup, but there was something sharper in her posture, like she'd already been through the worst and was willing to go through a bit more if it meant answers. We didn't hug. We didn't smile. I handed her a manila envelope. Inside, printed emails, photos, a screenshot of the goodbye plan, and the wedding photo from years ago with Reeves' face circled in red ink. She read in silence. Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't gasp, but her jaw clenched in a way that made her neck twitch. When she finally looked up, she said, "She did this to you too?" I just nodded. Hazel exhaled like she'd been holding something in for too long. You want her gone? She asked. I didn't answer, because I didn't know what I wanted anymore. Hazel reached into her purse and slid something across the table. A flash drive. I don't know exactly what's on it, she said. But 3 years ago, she asked me to destroy it. I didn't. I took it without a word. Later that day, back home, I plugged it into the laptop. Alone, curtains drawn, heart barely beating. Inside were 5 video files. The timestamps were from 4 years ago. Each one had the same setting, a motel room. Same grainy angle. Hidden camera. And in each one, Sorrel. With different men. Different nights. Same red robe. Same glass of wine. In the last video, she was on the phone. Her voice came through the tinny speaker like poison. I'm just waiting until Emery gets promoted. Then I can leave without looking like a monster. She laughed, and I finally cried. Not because of what she did, but because I realized I had been in love with a version of her that never actually existed. She had never loved me. She only needed me to hold the curtain up while she played the lead. But I wasn't holding anything up anymore. I wasn't leaving. She was. And the next time she walked through that door, I would let her know, without screaming, without pleading, without raising a single hand, that the show was over. The night before her planned disappearance, I made dinner. Not takeout. Not defrosted leftovers. Real dinner. Lemon garlic chicken. Roasted beets. Her favorite Riesling. The one we used to open on New Year's Eve when we believed in traditions. It was quiet in the apartment. Almost too quiet. Like the space itself was holding its breath. She came in just after 8 o'clock, phone in hand, face half lit by the screen. She paused when she saw the table. The candles, the steam rising off the plates, the folded napkins. For a second, her expression cracked. Just a flicker. Guilt? Fear? I couldn't tell. Did I forget something? She asked, setting her bag down slowly. No, I said. I just figured we should share one last meal. She blinked. You make it sound like an execution. I smiled. Don't flatter yourself. We ate mostly in silence. She picked at the chicken. I watched her hands more than her face. Her fingers trembled slightly every time she reached for her glass. She was expecting me to explode, to beg, to throw things, to say please don't go. But I didn't. Instead, when she stood to clear her plate, I said, Hazel sends her love. She froze. Her back was turned, but I saw her shoulders tense like a rope pulled too tight. She didn't answer right away. When she finally did, her voice was too calm. You spoke to my sister? I didn't just speak, I said. I listened. She turned around slowly, eyes narrowed. She's not exactly a reliable source. No, I said, standing up. But she is a good archivist. I reached into the drawer and pulled out the flash drive. I didn't hand it to her. I just placed it on the table between us like a chess piece that signaled checkmate. She didn't touch it. You went digging, she said. No, I replied. I opened a box you left burning in someone else's hands. A silence stretched between us, the kind that can only exist between two people who used to know each other's rhythms, but now speak entirely different languages. Then she did something strange. She sat back down, rested her chin on her palm, and smiled. Not warmly, not sadly, just knowingly. So what now, she asked. You gonna ruin my life? I tilted my head. No, you already did that. I'm just giving it back. The room stayed still. Then she reached for her phone, reflexively, like she was about to send a lifeline to someone. I let her. She typed something. Waited. Watched. I leaned against the counter, folded my arms, and waited too. 2 minutes later, she looked up. He's not answering, she said quietly. Reeve? I asked, keeping my voice light. She didn't answer. I continued. That's probably because he's at the Hilton on 54th, room 802, with someone named Mara. She's impressive, actually. Hazel met her once. They had the same therapist. Her face drained of color. You followed him? No, he followed you. I just helped the right people see it. She stood up then, quickly, knocked her wine glass to the floor. It didn't shatter, just rolled under the table like it was escaping the scene. She didn't bother to pick it up. You think this makes you strong? She hissed. You think this gives you the high ground? No, I said, walking past her. But it gives me peace. And I think that might be worse. She didn't stop me as I walked into the bedroom and came back with a packed duffel bag. I set it by the door. Not mine. Hers. I booked you a room at the St. Morgan, I said. 1 week. After that, I'm changing the locks. She laughed, short, dry, brittle. You think this makes you noble? No, I said again. It just makes me done. She stood there for a long time, staring at me like she wanted to burn a hole through my face. But I didn't flinch. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. And when she finally picked up the bag and walked out, she didn't slam the door. She didn't curse. She didn't cry. She just left. And that silence? That silence was mine now. I thought silence would heal me. After she walked out that night with her duffel bag and her expression locked into that unreadable, practiced calm, I expected peace to settle over the apartment like dust. I thought quiet would be the reward for enduring her lies. I thought I'd sleep better, eat better, breathe easier. But grief is tricky. It doesn't arrive in a straight line. It loops. It backtracks. It scratches at your walls at 2 a.m., even when you know the door is locked. 3 days passed. I didn't text her. I didn't check if she used the hotel room I paid for. I didn't care if she had reached Reeve, or if she was somewhere lying to someone new. I vacuumed the floors, cleaned out her closet, removed every bottle of shampoo she left behind. I even threw out her plants, not out of spite, but because I couldn't keep something alive that she had once touched. Then the letter came. It wasn't mailed. No stamp. No envelope. Just folded, tucked under my windshield wiper like a parking ticket from the universe. The paper was thin, hotel stationery from the St. Morgan. The handwriting, hers, was unmistakable, sharp, angular, beautiful, like the kind of woman who leaves you for someone who wears scarves and makes playlists. I read it standing in the driveway. Emery, I know you're not interested in my voice anymore, so I'll use paper. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to finish this letter. But there's something you should know, and it's not an excuse. It's just a context I never gave you. Reeve wasn't a mistake. Not entirely. He was the escape plan I created when I realized I couldn't be the person you married. You wanted someone kind, quiet, predictable. I tried to be her. But I was always lying. Not just to you, but to myself. I cheated on you long before the motel rooms and the calendar plans. I cheated the moment I started resenting the way you folded your socks or alphabetized your spice rack. I cheated the moment I started craving noise, chaos, danger. The truth is, I stayed because you were safe. And that safety made me hate myself. I left because I needed to know what it felt like to burn. I'm sorry that you were the ashes. I'm sorry for all of it. Don't look for me. You already saw too much. I folded the letter, placed it in the glove compartment. Then I started driving. Not toward her. Not toward Reeve. I didn't even know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay in a space that once felt like home and now smelled like rot beneath fresh paint. I ended up at a gas station 2 towns over. Inside, I stood in line behind a woman buying scratch tickets and a teenage boy loudly arguing about the price of batteries. The world hadn't ended. The world didn't care about what I'd lost. And somehow, that made me feel steadier. As I walked back out to the car, a voice called my name. It wasn't Sorrel. It wasn't Hazel. It was a man I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. Julian, my old roommate. My closest friend until Sorrel told me she didn't like how close we were. We had a falling out I barely remembered the cause of. But there he was, tan, tired-looking, holding a coffee in one hand and a car key in the other. Jesus, he said. You look like a ghost. I almost laughed. I might be. He stared at me for a second, then nodded like he understood something I hadn't said yet. You hungry? He asked. I was. But not just for food. For answers. For clarity. For something to remind me I wasn't built solely from the pain someone else left behind. We got in his car and drove toward nowhere. But I had a feeling I was finally about to understand what Sorrel had always been running from. And it wasn't me. It was what she did to Julian years ago, something I never saw coming. Julian and I sat in the back booth of a 24-hour diner just off the highway, the kind with peeling menus, eternal coffee refills, and a jukebox that hadn't worked since the Bush administration. The waitress didn't even ask if we wanted pie. She just brought it. Maybe I looked like someone who needed pie. We didn't talk for a while. Just sat, eating silently, surrounded by fluorescent lights and the soft hum of late-night static. Then he finally said it. She did it to me too. I stopped mid-bite. Julian stared at his fork, jaw tight. Back when you first got serious with her. She came to my place once when you were out of town. Said she was bored. Said you were too soft. Said she missed danger. He looked up. I said no. I told her to leave. Then she ghosted me. And you stopped talking to me right after that. I always wondered if she told you some twisted version of the story. I leaned back in the booth, stunned. A laugh escaped my throat, unplanned. Not the bitter kind. Something softer. Something exhausted. I thought I lost you because I didn't try hard enough, I said. You lost me because she made sure of it, he replied. But I never stopped checking in from a distance. I saw the wedding photos. She looked the same. You looked like you were trying to believe it. I rubbed my face with both hands. God, I feel so stupid. You're not, he said. You're just someone who wanted it to be real. That landed harder than anything else. Because it was true. All this time, I wasn't desperate to hold on to her. I was desperate to protect the version of us I thought existed. The one I'd fought for. Built stories around. Shared with family. It was never about her. It was about the dream she helped me write, before she started scribbling over it in permanent marker. I left the diner with a full stomach and something else I hadn't had in a while, perspective. I didn't need to chase closure anymore. I didn't need her to apologize a second time, or answer for every lie, or explain why she chose me just to hollow me out. She was gone, and the damage she caused no longer controlled me. It just reminded me of the kind of man I never want to be again. Weeks passed. I deleted her final email without reading it. Blocked Reeve's ghost account. I sold our couch. took down every photo she appeared in, and I painted the wall in the bedroom blue, a rich, calming blue that had nothing to do with her taste and everything to do with finally taking my space back. Hazel texted me once. It took courage. Most men would have imploded. I replied, I did, just quietly. I didn't date for a while, didn't rush anything. I went back to journaling. I rebuilt bridges with people she had quietly pulled me away from, including Julian, who now sends me terrible memes every morning at 6:42 a.m. without fail. And one random Sunday, when the light hit just right and the air smelled like clean rain, I sat on a park bench watching two kids feed ducks, and I realized something. I didn't lose everything. I lost her. And that, somehow, turned out to be the start of getting myself back. She'll always be a chapter, but I get to write the rest. On my terms. No edits. No lies. Just me. And I'm finally okay with that.